Morning. As you can see, at last we've got a sunny day, warm. The river behind, which has been on high tides for the last few weeks, is low and slow. It's gorgeous. Can't wait to get started this week. So this week we're doing more of the same. I'm in the gas lockers, but at least I don't have to work under a tarpaulin. I can work out and the paint can dry quicker in the sun. H is still doing the electrics. That'll probably be another week or two on that. Yeah, it's all going really well. Slow, but good.
However, before we start work, there's something I want to show you over here.
It's like something out of Thunderbirds.
I know, it's mad, isn't it? Ugly, but impressive.
Oh, I don't think it's ugly.
I think so.
So this is from the SBS, Special Boat Service. It was used for clandestine operations, maybe for unloading marines, that sort of thing. It's very stealth, designed to go through rather than over the waves, so it would probably avoid radar as well. It's having a new engine put in. Imagine this coming down the canal towards you.
Well, I've got this corner finished now. I've put the Sugru here, which is hardened, got it all painted. And yesterday, when we had an extraordinary amount of rain, it all went down the hole as it was supposed to, and the engine bay is as dry as a bone. So that's brilliant, it worked. It's really nice when a plan comes together. I've decided to do the same with the whole of this area. It's tricky because you need 4 days to paint every area. 2 coats of red oxide primer, 2 of top coat, and they take a good 24 hours to dry in between. And because we're coming in and out of this area all the time, I can only do little sections of it. So that's why this corner has been done just by itself. We can now cover that and I can move on to the next bit. And I've also decided to use the Sugru to make little cushions on all of the areas where metal touches the metal. So, for instance, over here on the locker, we've got some little cushions of Sugru there, and it just stops the metal from chinking the metal and knocking the paint off. It doesn't affect it in any other way. It just keeps the lid off by a couple of mil, and it just, you know, on a boat, as soon as you've got a chip of paint, you get rust. So I'm just trying to think ahead and improve that situation. These are inside my freshly painted lockers. This is the gas locker, which we probably won't use for gas, but we can if we want to. And this is my new best friend, the radiator brush, which I'm using for everything. It extends the reach of your arm by about 1 foot and gets into all the corners. I love it. And over in the electrical corner, oh, he's gone.
Hello. Okay, we've made a fair bit of progress on the wiring, electrics, etc. The complicated connection corner, as I'm calling it, is fairly well done now, so I don't need to do anything else down there other than the odd connection, little bits and pieces basically. Managed to get some homemade trunking in, so we don't have to use that plastic stuff, so I'm pleased about that. And this is of course all from wood that we've had lying about, or one of our very friendly neighbours keeps donating bits of wood for us, and I don't want to say no. Some of them may not be perfect. Okay, we've commenced wiring to this panel. This panel houses all the fuses, the circuit breakers, the bilge pump switch, all those kind of things. And from there, I've now started taking the wiring behind me down through here and into the trunking that we built some while ago. Switch wiring up there. All these wires are going to be for lights, these ones, and that's only about half the number of lights so far. When we're doing the wiring, what happens is that you think you know where everything goes, but an hour later you think, oh, where did that come from? So, to deal with that, we've got these cable markers. They're a requirement really for you have to put a manual together when you're doing this kind of work, and the wiring will, or the numbers at least, will allow the each wire to be identified from its own device right back to the fuse panel. So if there's ever any problems in the future, then it'll take seconds to identify where the problem is coming from. I've got some lights or the lights are not here yet, I'm still waiting for those to turn up, but the positioning is done now for the galley. So the galley is completed now. The next stage I shall be doing is our lounge area, and I've decided to make, I was going to just go 1, 2, 3 for the sections of lightings on the starboard side, and then do the same on the port side. But I've decided to alternate, so we'll have starboard wiring in the first section, which is the galley, port wiring, which is for the diner, starboard wiring for the lounge, and so on. So if we were to lose one half, then at least we would have lights consecutively down the boat without a huge gap in there. Seems to make sense to me. Okay, well, I'm going to be continuing with the wiring. I'm quite enjoying it actually. After all that planning, I've got marks everywhere, all on the foam and they're everywhere, so I do know where things are going to go. Okay, thanks.
So this week there was much fun and games as the houseboat next door was being taken over to the slipway to go over to the other side of the river. They tried to use the crane, but it didn't fit. So they went back to the time-honoured method of rollers underneath, with the tractor dragging it along. And some of the rollers got squashed, and the poor thing was being dragged along from time to time. But anyway, eventually they got it over to the slipway and onto the water, where a dinghy was waiting to put it over to the other side of the river. And then the owners are going to build the superstructure on over at their mooring.
Well, another couple of weeks gone by, and although it quite often doesn't seem like we've moved on very far, well, it doesn't to us anyway, we're working all the time, but you know, painting bits here and doing the electrics, you go on and on and on, and nothing much seems to change. And then all of a sudden you get one day where you realise you've turned a corner and you are moving on, and it's really, it's a relief. It's a long old job, this, anyway. We've given ourselves a year to do it. We shall see if we make a year or if it will be more. It doesn't really matter. We're actually still quite enjoying the process, so that's fine.